There are places we believe are safe by default, stores we walk into without a second thought, spaces built on routine, familiarity, trust. And then there are crimes so violent, so deliberate, they permanently shatter that illusion. Today, on Human Wreckage, we're examining one of the most disturbing unsolved mass murders in modern American history, a crime carried out in broad daylight, inside a women's clothing store, with witnesses, survivors, 911 calls, and yet no arrests. This is the story of the Lane Bryant murders. February 2nd, 2008 began like any other Saturday morning in Tinley Park, Illinois, a quiet suburb just outside Chicago. Strip malls, parking lots, familiar roads. Inside the Brookside Marketplace, employees unlocked doors and flipped on lights. At the Lane Bryant store, 5 women were present that morning, some working, some shopping. Maureen Mo Bush, store manager. Jennifer Lester, employee pregnant. Catherine Katie Smith, sales associate. Paula Davis, customer. Jennifer Hudgens, sales associate. These weren't strangers passing through each other's lives. They were co-workers, regular customers, women who felt comfortable enough to chat in the back of a store. No one sensed danger, no alarms, no warnings, until a man walked through the front door. Suspect description, as reported, African-American male, Ashnar 60, medium build, black baseball cap, dark clothing. Just before 11 a.m., a man entered the Lane Bryant store. He didn't browse. He didn't hesitate. He pulled out a handgun. Witnesses would later say he announced a robbery, but something about it immediately felt wrong. This wasn't frantic. This wasn't rushed. It was controlled. The gunman ordered the women into the back of the store. He told them to lie face down on the floor. They complied, because that's what people do when they believe cooperation equals survival. What happened next is where every theory breaks apart. The man didn't ask for money. He didn't demand purses. He didn't take hostages. Instead, he opened fire, one woman after another, at close range. This wasn't panic. This wasn't accidental. This was an execution. 4 women, Maureen Bush, Jennifer Lester, Catherine Smith, and Paula Davis, were killed where they lay. Jennifer Hudgens was shot, but survived. She played dead. And in doing so, she lived. After the gunman left, Jennifer Hudgens crawled to the bathroom. She locked the door, and she called 911. Her voice, weak, fading, told dispatchers what had just happened. That everyone else was dead. That she was dying. Paramedics arrived quickly, but 4 lives were already gone. Tinley Park went into lockdown. Police flooded the scene. Helicopters circled overhead. The story exploded nationwide. A mass shooting in a women's clothing store on a Saturday morning. Parents rushed to schools. Businesses shut down. And investigators began asking the question no one could answer. Why? There was no sexual assault, very little theft. No clear motive. Shell casings didn't match known firearms in national databases. Surveillance footage was grainy. Witness descriptions conflicted. This wasn't random, but it didn't feel personal either. It existed in a terrifying middle ground. Jennifer Hudgens survived, but survival came at a cost. She carried the memory of the gunman's voice, his presence, his movements. She worked with the police. She tried to help. But trauma fractures memory. And years later, Hudgens would pass away from health complications. With her death, the only living eyewitness was gone. Investigators pursued hundreds, possibly thousands, of leads. One suspect drew national attention, Juan Rivera, already imprisoned for another murder. But evidence failed to connect him definitively. And slowly, the case stalled. Not solved. Not closed. Just unanswered. For the families, time didn't heal anything. Children grew up without mothers. Husbands aged alone. Holidays carried missing voices. And the person responsible walked free. This case matters because it reminds us how fragile safety really is. Because 4 women were taken in a place they trusted. Because someone, somewhere knows the truth. And because justice delayed is still justice denied. Their names matter. Their lives mattered. And their story isn't over. If you have information about the Lane Bryant murders, law enforcement is still listening. The Lane Bryant murders are the kind of case that refuses to fade no matter how much time passes. Not because of what we know, but because of what we don't. 4 women lost their lives in a place that should have been ordinary, safe, and forgettable. Instead, it became the setting of a crime so calculated and so brutal that it still defies explanation. This wasn't chaos. It wasn't desperation. It was controlled violence. And that distinction matters because it tells us the person responsible didn't stumble into this moment, they carried it with them. Whatever drove them to walk into that store, to force 5 women into the back, to pull the trigger again and again, didn't disappear when they walked out. It went home with them. It aged with them. It's still out there. For the families, justice isn't an abstract idea. It's an empty seat at the table, a child growing up without a mother, a lifetime split cleanly into before and after. While headlines moved on, their grief never did. Every year without answers is another year of carrying the weight of someone else's violence. Cases like this challenge our faith in closure. We're taught to believe that evidence leads to truth, that witnesses lead to justice, that time eventually untangles even the worst crimes. But sometimes it doesn't. Sometimes all that remains are fragments, descriptions that don't quite align, footage that doesn't quite focus, leads that dissolve under scrutiny. And yet this case still matters, because silence protects only one person, because someone somewhere knows exactly what happened inside that store, and because justice doesn't expire just because years have passed. The Lane Bryant murders aren't just a mystery, they're a reminder that safety is fragile, that violence doesn't always announce itself, and that remembering is an act of resistance. If you know something, anything about this case, there is still time to speak. And to the women whose lives were taken, you are not forgotten. Your names are still spoken. Your story is still unfinished. This has been Human Wreckage. I'm Thomas. And until next time, take care of each other.